affordable houses plan is to move people from having kwao to having kwake. So I think, Bwana PS, if we can get the gentleman, we need to tell him that the challenge is not nani hana kwao, but the challenge is nani hana kwake. Because we must appreciate there's a difference between kwao na kwake. All right? And so that's why affordable housing that is the plug of affordable housing, to ensure that kila mtu ako na kwake. And as long as yes, it's true, you have kwenyu, now you need to have kwako. And that's why affordable housing is here.
The success of affordable housing program hangs on seamless collaboration between county governments, the national government, and the private sector. Counties, as the cog, act as the link between the national policy and the local realities. We engage regularly with the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, especially the State Department of Housing and Urban Development, through joint planning, forums, and technical working groups. Now, this engagement ensures that national policy frameworks and funding windows align with county priorities. The national government provides key enablers as the Kenya Mortgage Finance Company, which lowers the cost of mortgage financing, and the Affordable Housing Fund, which offers subsidies to eligible developers and buyers. Counties, on the other hand, facilitate the process by providing the land and the streamlining of development approval process, including building permits and environmental clearances, and also assist developers in community mobilization and sensitization, ensuring housing designs reflect the cultural and lifestyle preferences of the community. On the demand side, counties conduct housing needs assessments and affordability studies, often in partnership with universities, research institutions, and the civil society. Now, these studies inform the type of housing units constructed, be they social housing units like what we are implementing under the PINUA arrangement, rental flats, low-cost mansionettes, or multi-bedroom family units, matching the income levels and the household sizes of the residents.
Initially, there was a bit of skepticism, and from the pain that we've been feeling, I know especially for the employed, when you see our pay slips and there was a bit of the cut from the housing levy, and we are wondering where are all these houses being built. Is this something that the government is just promising Kenyans and not delivering? But I'm sure by now all of you have been able to see a development coming up or completed somewhere close to you. Right now, the question is not on whether construction is happening. It is happening everywhere. We have projects, as the PS was able to show us, across the country. And now the big question is then, how do I benefit as a Kenyan? Remember the levy, the 1.5% of your income, and also matched in under the informally employed segment, where the employer matches with a 1.5% deduction of your gross income, is not only for the formally employed. Even those who are in the informal sector are contributing and are supposed to contribute 1.5% of their income to the affordable housing levy, which is a levy. It's not a contribution to your specific, to your deposit towards a house or towards payment of a house. That is a levy, unless, unlike the previous misconception that was a contribution to your house.
Remember, everybody, anywhere in the world, is a stakeholder in housing. And there is no time ever where housing ceases to be needed by people. And that's why we find this extremely important, and we decided to have this side event together with the State Department for Housing as well as the Affordable Housing Board for a greater discussion. The people who are in this panel are all important stakeholders in housing, from lands to financiers to the Affordable Housing Board and others. And they essentially are the people who will help you to get a home. Now, I just want to quickly go into what KMRC or who KMRC is. KMRC is your financial partner for affordable home loans. Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company is a lender. We provide home loans, or we provide end-user finance financing to essentially to people to be able to buy homes. And what is the difference? The difference is not an ordinary bank. It does not mean that you go to KMRC like the way you do to an ordinary bank and get a loan at high rates that you see or you find whenever you go to financial institutions. We lend directly to banks and SACCOs. So we work with SACCOs and banks for purposes of distribution. They lend to you at affordable rates. And what do we mean by affordable? It is single-digit financing or less than 10% funding. So if you go to a bank today, any bank actually, some of them are here, Housing Finance, KCB, ABSA, Stanbic, SACCOs like Stima, Harambe, and others, they give you KMRC home loans, which are extremely affordable. And what we are talking about affordable is less than 10%. That's number one. That's the rate, which is usually a key component on a home. The other key component in any home loan or any loan that you borrow is how long are you going to take to repay. That's a repayment period, or what we otherwise call a tenor.
More often, the issue that revolves when you talk about land is the issue of ownership documents. How do I ascertain, or how do I know this property is mine? We today are talking about affordable housing and what is the role of the State Department when it comes to issuance of ownership documents. We have just seen a presentation by PS Inga, and if you looked at it, you could see the units. Then the issue could be, how then do you issue titles when we are used to issuing titles on land, and now we are talking of titling of units? In order to have this come to reality, in the year 2020, we came up with the Sectional Properties Act, which provides for the subdivisions of units. I want to avoid using very technical words such as georeferencing. By surveying the units within the building and providing ownership document within that unit of the building. That is what sectional property is all about. There are key documents that are required for you to come up with that unit identifying the unit. And this starts with the issue of the sectional plan. And this is where, as a state department and the county governments, where we plug in, because the sectional plans require that they be approved by the county where the property is situated under Section 4 of the Sectional Properties Act. Allow me also to say that in the process of titling of sectional units, there is an aspect of a chameleon. If we know the life cycle of a chameleon, for the new ones to live, the mother must die. So is the issue that you have a big land which has one title. That title has to be surrendered so as to create sectional plan to give part to sectional titles in the name of sectional units, where you will have a land register for each unit.
What we do basically is that we have partnership with 4 segments of the market. One is the banks and financial institutions, who we do rent directly. The other one is developers, skilled developers, people who are able to do big projects. They come under our fund. The other one is public-private partnerships, where we do partnerships with the private sector and also with the government, and to try and see where we are able to scale projects. And the last one is where we do fundraising, which is maybe another core mandate. And the kind of fundraising we look at fundraising that has an impact. If you look at real estate, it's changing across the market right now. There is more emphasis on green. There is more emphasis on affordability. And the two the two by themselves do not go parallel. You can't talk about affordability and then say green, because green is to have, like what PS told us, you have more open ground. Whenever you present that to a developer, he'll tell you how much more he can be able to do. So for that to happen, then you have to look for what we call impact funds. You have to look for funds that are directed into climate, because they tend to be cheaper. For you to achieve that, then you must prepare projects within a country to be able to fit in that kind of a mandate. So one of the things we do is that we have a model we call Viro. And our Viro model is just to go into a market and look who are the initiatives that are there. And let me, at this point, thank Kenya. We did our analysis last year, and Kenya is the best program in Africa 2024. There is no program of that nature, that magnitude, the boldness and the reach. Nobody had tried that in Africa.
Recently, we are also partnering with the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce so that we can leverage the nationwide membership arrangement, because at the moment, KPDA is largely developing properties within Nairobi, Kajiado, Kiambu, Machakos. But with our intention now to get into the affordable housing program and support government in injecting more supply of units, we need to go countrywide. So welcome all. And we're not exhibiting today, but on the 25th of September, we will be holding our annual conference where we'll discuss a lot of the things that have been said here today, and how we can stimulate the market of Kenya to increase the real estate asset class. So from housing to commercial buildings, industrial buildings, etc. So I will take just a short while. There's a lot that can be discussed about affordable housing. I'll take a position and just mention 4 critical things that will enable the private sector to hold hands with government to grow affordable housing. And I think we have heard that the housing sector is crucial because of the growing population and the rapid urbanization. So at the moment, the affordable housing program is not producing housing fast enough. And as His Excellency the President is always saying, affordable housing is about giving people dignity. Affordable housing is not cheap. I think our PS talked about that. Affordable housing is about stimulating labor. And so the private sector doesn't have a choice but to come forward and hold hands with government.
Under the Act, Affordable Housing Act of 2024, there was established county committees, affordable housing county committees in each of the 47 counties. The counties are required to establish them. The Act outlines the membership. The Act outlines the roles of these county committees. But we did face a challenge, especially around issues of financing the activities of these committees. And the issues of, there was the bill in Parliament regarding that. And we were unable to unlock it over the last year. So we were unable to really operationalize these committees, but that through the Senate and the National Parliament, we were unable to lock that. And therefore now the role, we will be able to operationalize them over this current year. Financing has been locked. Their roles are there. Most of the boards have been able to establish. I think by now we have about 37 of the 47 counties which have been established. So then we'll be able to operationalize them. And it has taken quite a time, some long time to do that, which is also unfortunate for us because we intend these committees to be sort of our boards within the counties. We anticipate them to help us in identification of the project areas where we'll be carrying out the projects, to help us in issues around stakeholder engagement and management, to be able to oversight the projects that are being implemented within the counties all the way to closure, and help us in terms of ensuring that there is proper uptake of these projects.
There's one thing that is called character, which Esther talked about, that's almost impractical to legislate. Character is about a human being, it's about a person's behavior and things like that. But what do we do about that during lending? Now, for purposes of accessing credit, there is usually a due diligence process that is undertaken. A couple of things are checked, not just merely how you're going to pay or your ability to pay, but also about your track record or your credit history. Credit history is very important, and that's a character issue. Because if you have been unable or refusing or unwilling to repay your loans when you borrow, then that's a character matter that, of course, is checked. So your track record on repayments of any borrowings that you've taken is usually taken into consideration to ensure that you don't allow people who may have bad manners to continue with the bad manners to borrow, because, of course, then they will not want to borrow. They will always want to borrow with no intention of repaying.
I don't think that currently we have a gap in law. Rather, I would look at the manner in which when we started the program, how it started. Those of us who remember, we had the issue of even where private individuals could come and hover their land. But when government took a park, then they realized if you go to get private land, you have to do a purchase of that land. And the purchase of that land could go to the cost of the unit. And that way, because there were properties that were owned by either county or national government, but we did not even know what those parcels were served for. So it was critical to go back and find out the intent for those parcels so that you can pin them to the point of getting to ownership.
There's a quite wide range. I was actually very surprised when we were handing over Mukuru units. And there is a lady who had applied as a person living with disability. And when she came to site, and which is very wrong for us, we usually look at you visually, as humans, not as the board. Now me as Sheila, we look at you if either you're talking through sign language, either you're limping, either you're on a wheelchair, And we didn't see anything, and we were like, what is the disability? And it's a requirement that once you apply and indicate that you're living with a disability, you must have that card that they're issued with. And when I looked at the card, actually the disability was arthritis. I was very, very surprised. I did not know it's categorized as a disability, because we are saying we have ground floor units. That is where we have reserved. But she says that ground floor, most times they are cold, the units are cold. So for me, that affects me, and we keep learning through exposure, through our experiences, and also the people who now come into our space. So we are trying to ensure that we carry everybody along in this affordable housing program. I wish to take this opportunity to thank us all. It's not very common to find that you've been here for 2.5, 3 hours and the room is still full. I don't take it for granted, and it also gives me a lot of confidence that there is a lot of interest in terms of this program. Understanding what the program is, where we are going, how do we benefit as Kenyans in our various aspects, whether it's as individuals, as professionals, as developers, suppliers, financiers, along this entire value chain. And that's why we saw it fit to have a panel that is very rich, looking at development all the way from construction, looking at issues of financing, both for the developers, suppliers, as well as for the homeowners, looking at our private sector, how do they come in, what opportunities are there for them, how do they support this program. There is a housing gap of 250,000 units annually, and the private sector puts in 50,000 of those units. So private sector is a key player. We anticipate that with their participation, we are able to cover that gap and even go beyond per year. We do have, you have had the chance to understand what is your security of tenure in regards to this affordable housing program, because that has been a key concern for many Kenyans, just to understand what we are doing and what laws are in place to secure you as homeowners. And we have had the participation of the county governments to understand what role they are playing, and you have had even from the questions on the ground from the audience. So I take this opportunity to thank you all, to thank our panelists most sincerely for accepting to be here with us, to be able to answer questions and to address concerns, queries regarding the program and the various aspects of the program. And also just to thank you, our audience, for being here with us and for sitting through that entire session and being very active to even raise questions, because from the questions is when we understand where the major gaps, where the major questions are. So asanteni sana. As you leave their gift packs, just to say asante for being here. Mentioned we have our exhibitions out here. Our colleagues, our panelists and ourselves, we do have exhibition slots either within the pavilion or the other exhibition space. So please feel free to come to our spaces if you have further questions, if you need assistance, if you need to register. Come to the Affordable Housing Board, number 3 at the pavilion. Come start your journey to your home ownership. Nambarikiwe sana. Sante.